That's really weird. Andrea, Sally. Mary Beth.
She went the wrong way.
Where is she?
I don't know.
Sally.
I can't whistle.
All right, welcome to the July 21st ANC 3F meeting at Forest Hills of DC. I have a quorum of 6 out of 7 commissioners here. If you want to quickly introduce yourselves, I'm Adam Tope, chair of ANC 3F. Mary Beth, you want to quickly say hi?
Mary Beth Ray, 3F3.
Malachi Nugent, 3F06.
Pat Chakopchik, 3F07.
Sally Gresham, 3F04. Andrew Molad, 3F05, Commission Secretary.
Okay, so we have an agenda here. Is there, so that sidewalk is not on, right? Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I had suggested moving the resolution for former Commissioner Tom Whitley further up to the top of the agenda.
We'll do that right before.
Is Mrs. Whitley?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's
Okay. Okay, we'll do that right after the open forum. Okay.
Great, thank you.
So make a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we have a consent agenda to approve minutes from June, May, and a letter to HPRB to support minor changes to 3520 Springland. They're basically taking a screened-in porch and putting walls on it, so something to that effect. But no one is opposed to it that I'm aware of. So those are our consent agenda items. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agendas. Or second? All right, all in favor? Any chance say aye?
Aye.
All right, so it's unanimously approved. So those are all approved. We will send a letter to HPRB on the 3520 Springland, which is interestingly the only house in the Cleveland Park Historic District in our ANC. So 3F02 election for Karen Perry. There are 2 candidates. According to the DC code, we get to hold a meeting to run the election as part of a meeting. So what we're going to do is hold the election on August 6th, which is Thursday, August 6th. We'll have a special meeting. During that time, we'll do some minimal ANC business, and which will probably be approval of a financial report. Then we can do whatever. But basically, from 7:05 p.m. till 7:55 p.m., so 50 minutes. If you are registered to vote in 3F02, you can come to the voting site to vote. And you vote there, we count them at the end of that, declare a winner, and that's about it. And the election will take place at 4301 Connecticut Avenue, so the building where the Giant is, at the VZ Terrace entrance. So we'll promote that everywhere and try to get in the current and put it on all the listservs so people know. But there's no absentee voting, there's no early voting under the law. It's just you have to show up during that 50-minute period and vote. So that's how it works.
Will a commission meeting be there?
Yeah. And then we'll have no August normal meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of August, since we'll have no other business. That will change if something does come up needing our input, but given most DC agencies don't have an August meeting, we should not have anything.
We can take care of other business at the
Special
Special
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah, so we'll put an agenda out as well. So I think that is it on the election announcements. I see one candidate's here. Do you want to say something for a minute or two? So Shirley, come on up. The other candidate is Dave Donaldson. He told me he would be here as well, but does not appear to be here. But Shirley, you're here if you want to speak for a minute or two. Yeah, I can turn it.
Perhaps I can also turn in the audience if that's okay. Thank you, Adam. Hi, good evening, everyone. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you, but my name is Shirley Adelstein. I'm running to represent ANC's single-member district 3F2. I'm running for this position because I really care about our neighborhood, and I think this is just a wonderful way to get more involved and serve my community. My views on issues are informed by the values that I think are really important for our area. In particular, livability, affordability, and sustainability. To me, supporting those values means promoting things like transit accessibility and pedestrian safety, reduced crime and homelessness in our area, clean parks and trails, fair leasing practices, and also ensuring that business development decisions are made in a thoughtful way that ensures that they actually benefit our community and provide essential services. I also know it's incredibly important to listen to the people around you. Good decisions might be grounded in good values like that, but they're also guided by good listening. I really love talking to people and working with people, and I really believe in bridging differences as a way to find solutions to difficult problems. If you'd like to learn more about me or my priorities, please visit my website, www.shirleyadelstein.com. You can also email me at any time at shirleyforanc@gmail.com. I'll also be staying after the meeting, so if you'd like to approach me, I would love to hear from you. Thank you all so much. I would really appreciate your support on Election Day.
Thanks. And Dave is not here, so. Okay. So next on our agenda, we'll skip this report because we don't have an officer here. So I'll go to commissioner announcements. Mary Beth, you want to start?
Sure. So things in 3F3 have been really busy. I don't know what happened, but I think Commissioner Gresham sent all of her complicated issues over to 3F3 this month. So I have 5 announcements. The first is that, as anybody who uses Soapstone Trail knows, we had some problems over the last couple of weeks, and DC Water and DDOE detected higher than usual E. coli counts in Soapstone Valley Creek. So DC Water discovered a leak in the pipe between the east end of Audubon Terrace and Broad Branch, and they're repairing that leak. Has anybody been down there? I know Commissioner Gresham has been, and so yeah. So if you've been down there, you've seen they have a pump, and basically what they've done is rerouted the sewage in a temporary sort of canvas-looking. It's not really canvas, but sort of a soft pipe. So they have also discovered higher than normal E. coli counts near the head of Soapstone Valley Trail, just off of Albemarle and 32nd Street. And DC Water has requested DNA testing to determine whether that's human or animal waste. And then they will determine the next steps once they figure out what the source is. So meanwhile, as all the signs say, pets and humans should avoid contact with the creek. The second DC Water announcement is that DC Water will hold a public meeting in this space on Tuesday, July 28th at 7:30 p.m. The meeting will present 2 options for the long-term infrastructure repair that we need for pipes under Soapstone Valley Park. These pipes are over 100 years old. Was anybody here at that meeting where we discussed it about a year ago? So as you'll remember, at the time there was basically only one proposal. Now there are 2 proposals. One is to line the pipes that are under Soapstone Park, and the second option is to remove the pipes entirely from the park, which sounds good, except that that would involve 2 large, smelly pumping stations. So it's a very difficult situation. We all want our toilets to flush. We don't want any more E. coli in Soapstone Valley Creek. There are these 2 options, and I would really encourage you to come and learn more about what our options are. The third announcement is we've all seen the homeless gentleman at the west side of the Van Ness Metro. There are a number of medical issues, as you can imagine. I just want you all to know that there are lots of wheels going on in the background. I see the mayor's office is here, Mary Che's office is here. We're grateful for the help that you all are giving us. We're also working with the MPD and several volunteer organizations, Friendship House and Georgetown Ministry Center. And Commissioner Adam Tope has been involved trying to get help to this man as well. So I think there are really 3 issues. They're his medical issues, they're public health and safety issues, and there's frankly the economic impact of Fannie Mae not filling its space and allowing that space to go vacant, which encourages people hanging out. It's a very sad situation and very complicated, so I would just ask everybody to please be patient, and we're hoping that he will get some help in the next couple of weeks. The fourth announcement is the DC Council approved $200,000 in funding for Van Ness Main Streets. Thank you again to Councilmember Che's office and Councilmember Orange. We're excited to have the opportunity to make Van Ness a more beautiful and economically vibrant place. The Main Street application is due on October 2nd. And the fifth announcement is that DC's Office of Planning is working on the final draft of their report on the Van Ness Commercial Action Plan. And they hope to schedule a meeting this fall, so I will keep you posted as I know a date. That's all.
Okay.
Was the E. coli discovered a routine testing? Is that standard?
Yes, it was routine testing. I think it was actually done by DDOE.
Dave?
Yeah, I had talked to actually the DC Department of Environment actually today, and I guess Josh is going to be speaking next week to everybody here. What's interesting is that what they discovered in sort of our conversation was interesting, and I thought with the 3 of the members, was that the actually it's interesting is that the E. coli issue, Silverspring, was discovered by 5th graders when they were doing this sort of a testing type of thing, and they had told me that's what the leakage was, or what suspectively was, and that that they're going to go back and reassess that. They took some testing with the like of that, but however, my understanding with because DC Department of Environment basically is an overseer of some of the and measures the environmental studies of that particular issue, the E. coli. And what I thought was smart is that they got DC water, and they're going to go back and test actually in the next few days for contamination of the soil and the environment. And I think you pointed out is walked a little late, but they are going. The next long-term project, which will be figured out sometime in replacing the pipe, and that was an interesting thing. And the other point you made about the unfortunate it happens as the homeless fellow in case it's on Connecticut, on the corner of Van Ness, and it's very, very sad. sad thing. I talked to one of the who said, please, Dave, what can you do to help this guy move this on? And there's an empathetic side of it. Okay, and I've talked to the guy, an older fellow, and he doesn't want to be moved. And sort of I'm not part of the program here, but the issue is just what can we do to help you? As rather point the finger, it's just it's an ugly thing as far as aesthetically, but he does need help, and it's up to I think Mary's aware of that. I know that for a fact, and Mira's office is aware of that at the mayor's office, and it just has to. There's got to be a kind of way. He refuses to want to go into an environment where he's going to be hospitalized. Okay, it could be sort of, and he just feels that way. And as you said, okay, obviously, okay, you're working with in that capacity. But I also think it would be great if some of the leaders in the community would sort of. This guy lives on the street, and we're sort of missing not the stuff he has there in front of those three, 4 stores, restaurants, a business, but himself. And so there's got to be sort of an understanding that we need somebody special to talk to this person, to move that person on. And it disappoints me. Okay, it's now almost 5 weeks. And
It's been a lot longer than that, but we really appreciate your
it's
concern.
still protracted, and it doesn't make any sense. And we all go home to our air conditioning units, but I'm disappointed with that.
I think we all are.
Go ahead, Mal, could you have any announcements?
I have a couple just announcements and updates about things going on in 3F06. We're exploring some options for some sidewalks, some adjustments to some sidewalks. One would be the possibility of perhaps extending the sidewalk up Yuma Street. Going from Connecticut up to 35th Street, the sidewalk ends in the middle of the block, and then pedestrians have to cross the street in the middle of the block. So we're looking into the possibility of extending the sidewalk up to 35th, the corner of 35th, so they can cross at a crosswalk. We're also looking at the possibility of reinstalling the tree space at the corner of Connecticut and Appleton Street. Right now, there is no sort of tree lawn there at the corner. There's a space that's maybe 20 feet long that's just covered with concrete. There are plans for DDOT to come in and do some sidewalk repair in that area. So as part of that, we're looking into the possibility of just taking out some of that concrete and putting in grass or some other plantings. You may have seen the announcements from the mayor's office of Alley Palooza. This is the follow-up from Pothole Palooza a couple months ago. In our ANC, there's only one alley that is going to be targeted as part of Alley Palooza. That's the alley behind the Days Inn and the car wash and Burger King, that area back there. So that's great. We're glad to see there's so much commercial traffic back there, as well as residential traffic from the apartment building at 44 Connecticut, I think it is, the other alleys in our area, which have had requests for resurfacing or repair for a long time. Let's see. Also, I don't know if anybody has heard of any particular problems as a result of the closing of the western entrance to the metro, particularly people crossing, but I can report that DDOT has installed timers on the crossing signals at Yuma and Wyndham. There were the little figures, the little walk, don't walk men on those, but they didn't have the seconds timers. So now there are seconds timers at those particular intersections. The next step will be to increase the time allotted for pedestrians to cross Connecticut at those particular intersections, which is something that we had asked for to make it easier for the increased volume of pedestrians who have to cross now because of the closing. Apparently that will be done within the next 30 days. And I want to just acknowledge Barbara Klein, who is one of the residents of the neighborhood, who has been working with DDOT and really pushing this particular issue along. Let's see, and then the last issue is we are working with DDOT to try to get some new signs at an alley between Fessenden and Everett, at 3600 block of Fessenden and Everett. It's an area that commuters cut through this alley. It's right up by Murch Elementary and a Montessori school and a preschool. And commuters in the morning cut through there to avoid the light at Reno and Nebraska. And a lot of kids walk through that alley on their way to school. So we're trying to get some new signs put up there. Slow but steady progress, hopefully, on that.
Great,
That's
thank
all.
you. So Pat, you have any?
Yeah, I have one. About 2 weekends ago, I had the pleasure of walking the Soapstone Trail near my district, ANC 3F07, with representatives from the Hillwoods Estates and the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. We looked at a few areas that are being affected by some rainwater runoff, and talked about some of these steps Hillwood is taking to fix those problems. And I just wanted to commend Hillwood on doing that. Say I look forward to working with some other large property owners in preserving Soapstone and our other trails. And as we all know, Soapstone's one of the jewels in our community. Along with Melvin Hayes and the Western Ridge, we've got a lot of nice trails around here. So I'm looking into restarting the Soapstone subcommittee we had last ANC with a wider focus on all the trails in our area. If you're interested in this, please let me know. My email is pat.jakopczyk at gmail.com. You can find it on the website. I'd like to hear from you, and hopefully I'll be introducing a resolution to do just this at one of our upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Nice. Sally?
3. Latest update from the Park Van Ness construction project is they're ongoing with the concrete operations at the main roof penthouses. They're starting, what you all have seen, the precast panels on the west elevation. They have finished a lot of the back area looking out at Rock Creek Park. So if you go down into Rock Creek Park, you will see windows and brick on that side. They're setting windows in the front. They're doing utility work in the public space, mainly in the front at the south end of the site near Park, Connecticut. They're installing the electrical vaults, and some of the work is done late at night, but most of us don't know it because we're asleep. And they're starting the interior work. The apartments will be pre-leasing in August, and they will have an office where the homeless man is, which is very interesting. They've asked us to please help move which Mary Beth has been doing a stellar job at. Thank you, Mary Beth. So hopefully that will be resolved before they open in August. We have heard that they will be having tenants in the space, in the retail space. They have definitely signed the frame shop that was there before in 600 square feet. The other roughly 9,000 square feet, 8,000 square feet is under negotiation with 2 entities, which I'm not at liberty to talk about yet, but hopefully next ANC meeting you'll know more information. The sidewalk continues to be closed. They have done a lot of work with WMATA and DDOT. DDOT has decided to keep the traffic control plan as it has been approved, and the sidewalk will stay closed until roughly December. The Forest Hills Playground Update Park, we will continue to have the last Friday of the month concerts put on by the Friends of Forest Hills Playground. The next band, it was very successful, the one last month in June, quite a turnout, and you can see it on the Forest Hills Connection. There's a very nice story about the concert. The weather was good, which is good. Hopefully the Friday, July 31st, there'll be the next concert, and it's going to be Bob Perella's Big Hillbilly Bluegrass Band. So if you like bluegrass and jazz and hillbilly songs, it's for you. They have gotten a lot of good recognition. I think they've actually played at the White House. On August the 28th, there'll be the 3rd concert with Downwire, which is kind of more my music. Rock, blues, soul, and Motown.
You need that bass.
No, you need that bass. Both concerts start at 5:30 and last till 7:30. And friends they say bring your picnic and hang out beforehand and after. The biggest news is we have a new restaurant in our area. It's called Thai Pad Restaurant, and it's right between the nail salon and Leo's Barbershop at the Albemarle Corner Shops. It opened on Sunday, July 12th. They had a event, kind of a closed event opening for certain neighborhood and the family, and they had 3 monks that did a blessing for 2 hours. So hopefully the restaurant will be well blessed. Go try their lunch and dinner, and please welcome Steve Imus and his wife to the neighborhood. They're very nice.
We ate there last night, and it was delicious.
Good.
I had takeout
I've
from
gotten
there
good
last night.
reports.
It was delicious.
I'm surprised we didn't see it.
So good. A bunch of us have already been there. That's all.
Along with Commissioner Ray, we're also talking with people in the community near Fessenden and Broad Branch to try to get a petition together to get some sidewalks installed and extended. The petition is being gathered. They have most of the signatures they need. Probably at the next meeting or the one after, we'll have some kind of resolution for DDOT to install the sidewalks. That's all I have.
I forgot one thing. Can I just
Yeah, go
jump
for
in?
it.
I also, sorry for coming back, I wanted to acknowledge the efforts of Councilmember Che and thank her office for securing for our neighborhood the designation of the retail priority areas to extend all the way up Connecticut, which would include the shops at the 5,000 block of Connecticut, where Politics and Prose is right up here. That will allow those businesses to apply for grants from the Department of Small and Local Business Development, and also to secure funding for the Clean Team program to extend up this far and actually all the way up to the Maryland border. The clean teams will come along and clean up the street and the tree boxes and just generally do regular cleaning and maintenance of the streetscape. So we want to thank Councilmember Che's office for that.
So they're eligible for Great Streets grants?
Should be.
If
Yeah.
there is money.
Right, if there is money.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I read on the Forest Hills connection that the Walgreens is closing. I wonder if anybody has any insights into that's
Not
assume they
much.
still any business.
I mean, I think with July 30th, the last 30th last day, and they didn't really reach out to us or really, I don't think anyone, in all honesty.
I just saw
some signs when I was in there. So if we find out something, we'll circulate it. But I think the only thing I know is we have the NS Vision Committee we're already kind of figuring out who would we like to attract to that. Is Walgreens selling it? Who could we attract to buy it? If they're just going to lease it, who can we attract to lease it? And some kind of retail that all of us might like. So hopefully,
Who owns
something.
the building?
Walgreens
Walgreens.
owns it, so who
And
knows?
there's
They did
actually-
that development.
Yeah.
There's an economic enhancement subcommittee to the Van Ness Main Streets. If you're interested, we rely on community involvement, so we'd love to have assistance and help in keeping our neighborhoods livable and sustainable.
Question about announcements?
Actually, in all respect, Adam, okay, with regard to that Walgreens, if you remember, back 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, whatever, actually 5 years ago, when they had closed down the gas station, one of the issues there was contamination with regard to fuel seeping into the environment. However, that being said, what separates it, what was interesting about the Walgreens itself was that, unlike any other drugstore, commodity store like that, actually any box store, it also had a fuel refueling point as well, or in the back. And so after that closes on the 30th, and I haven't talked to Councilman Che's office yet, but or Anita's office, Councilman Bond. But what's interesting is once that goes is I don't know the capacity. I don't think many of us know the capacity of what that electrical refueling was for charging cars up and stuff like that. Even if whoever takes over that, what's interesting is that, well, was there any contamination, okay, or any with regard to that issue itself? Or
I don't know, but we can find out. Okay. So next up is open forum announcements. So if you have something to discuss that's not on the agenda tonight, you may come up to the microphone and speak. David, you're first. Yes.
I'm David Bardeen. I'm a former commissioner. I live at 4701 Connecticut Avenue Northwest. 2 items. First, briefly, as reported in the Northwest Current and the Forest Hill Connection, the University of District of Columbia has a new president. He took office, started working on July 6th, Ronald Mason, and I think his first public act was the dedication of the new green roof and greenhouse on the roof on one of the buildings on Van Ness Street. I know Chairman Tope was there. I think some of the other commissioners were there. That's a big event. I look forward to the day when he appears at one of these meetings. Second, I have an item I want to call to your attention, particularly in connection with those trails and the 2 parks, Melvin Hazen and Soapstone Valley. In addition to the historic preservation issue that you have on the agenda, there's another matter pending before the Historic Preservation Review Board. And it involves the Rock Creek Park Historic District, which is a landmarked district under both DC law and the national federal historic preservation law. The issue that has been raised at the Historic Preservation Review Board by the National Park Service, namely its National Capital Regional Office, is their proposal to expand the district, the landmark district, to include 9 additional satellites, including the 2 that we're interested in our neighborhood, Melvin Hazen and Soapstone Valley. That was presented, I can send you all the documents I have, but that was presented late last year. There was a hearing in November or December. The board staff recommended approval, and the board approved in principle, but wanted more outreach to ANCs. And I learned from I haven't been able to talk to the Park Service, and we'll try to during your August recess and let you know what I find out. But I have learned from the Preservation Board staff that outreach means outreach by the Park Service, not by the Preservation Board. So what I'd like you to think about doing is looking at the materials, considering how this ANC wants to relate to it. And it seems to me you may want the Park Service, which would be the capital region, to come here to some subsequent meeting and talk to you about what they're proposing, why they're proposing it, what's the effect, and any other issues, of course, they come. It's a chance for you to engage at the regional level with the National Park Service. And then you decide whether you want to take a position or you just want to tell the Historic Preservation Board that this isn't a matter which really requires you to take a position. But I'd just like you to get on top of it and decide how the commission, this ANC, will look at those issues. But I will make sure I get to each of you is the application and the staff report and the one document that the board, the Historic Preservation Review Board, has issued. Like everything else, it's a question of implementing laws. We have DC laws, which you've all taken an oath, as I did in my day, to uphold, and we have the federal laws, which you've also taken an oath to uphold. And if it qualifies, and it seems to me that that extension should be made, but you want to look at it from the point of view of the first-hand knowledge that members of this ANC and this community have of Soapstone Valley Park and Melvin Hazen Park. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, David. Does anyone else wish to discuss?
Hi, I'm Bianca. I work for Mary Che's office. I was just told today, just in reference to the homeless man, I think some people know I was told that it was made public, but my constituent services staff told us that I believe on the 27th of this month there's going to be a meeting at 2D about how to help this man. That's
The
what I was told by the 28th. Okay. And then on the 3rd of August, the district is going to come and clean up that area. And I guess they gave him 2 weeks notice. There's a sign posted so that he can get all of his documents or whatever. So they should come and clean it up on the 3rd.
Well,
Great.
That's
it's
what
more
Anthony Castillo
complicated.
told me.
I think we can just leave it at that, though.
Okay.
I'm going to put clean it up. What does that mean? What about the general?
Right, that's a separate issue. They're going to address that at the meeting.
He can't have his stuff in
Go
public.
clean him up, yeah.
He can't have his stuff in, if it's public space, he can't have his stuff in public space.
I agree, and I chatted with him about that, but more important, and there's nothing I can do, I'm just a citizen about that, but more important is that, as they talk, the question is, and I know Mary's office, but Councilman Che's office, but have they at least tried to send somebody in
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
Yes.
So for like the past 2 months, we've had police officers and social services people and different people talking to him, and he's not interested, so they can't force you, obviously. So I think it's a work in progress, but I think we'll see something that will hopefully benefit him and then also help kind of clean up the mess that's there in the next couple of weeks. And I think, I don't know what else.
So the question is to remove
And
the
I don't think it's really appropriate to go into too much more detail, to be frank, because I think he has privacy rights. And so if anybody would like to discuss what is appropriate to be discussed, I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting.
Does anyone else would you like to come up to our microphone?
Good evening. My name is Bartley O'Hara. I live here at 4901 Connecticut. My wife Judy is here. You sometimes see me pushing around the neighborhood. I take the bus quite a bit, commute to and from town. I am really concerned about southbound on the L buses in the morning, the jaywalking between the bus stop and the subway stop. Somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, I saw 30 people walk in front of the bus across the street the other morning. I mean, and I've lived in big cities all my life, and that took my breath away. I thought somebody is really going to get hurt.
Okay.
Near the metro, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, because the way it's configured, where the bus stop sign is, which is where the driver stops, when you alight there, you have to walk up to the intersection, then you have to walk across Connecticut Avenue, then you have to come back to get to the ingress for the subway on the east side of the street.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like much.
So they're crossing like in the middle.
Yeah. Right.
of
You
the-
can see them on the camera.
It is a problem.
Yeah.
Going in front of them. So the traffic's pretty light through the summer here, but when it starts to dense up
Yeah.
after Labor Day, now, I don't know if there is a solution. I honestly don't. I look at, but I'm just going to do some measurements and see if there's some kind of alternative or whatever could be done. Because it was, to me, it was pretty frightening.
You're right. I see it every morning. And we raised this with MPD last month and asked them to enforce the laws against jaywalking. And I'm not sure that MPD is here tonight.
Yeah.
But I think that we should.
Yeah, we could
They're
talk to
going
them.
to. I mean, there's going to. I think there's going to have to be kind of a combination. Anyway, I'm going to get a little bit more facts before I come up here and bazoo on. But
Okay.
I just wanted to make that an awareness point.
Great.
Well,
Thank you.
we're hoping in September that the west entrance will open again with the stairs going down.
Really?
That's what they have told us originally.
Oh, really?
We do
Oh,
not
that would
have,
be terrific.
do we have an assessment? Do
We
know?
haven't received a timeline, have we?
No, from our last meeting. I was going to bring that
Yeah.
up.
Oh, that'd be super.
But we have not gotten a timeline, which this ANC had requested in June.
Uh-huh.
And they said they were going to give, we were going to give it to us within days, which we still haven't
Okay,
gotten.
okay, all right.
So we
That-
probably should have invited them tonight. Again, we should have them at the September meeting.
Okay, great.
And hopefully, they will get back to us on the status of the structure of the stair, because if the stair is sound, then they were planning on opening it back up once they got the escalators out of the
I
hole.
see, okay, oh, that'd be terrific.
But it's pie in the sky,
That's-
but
that's
we'll
right.
see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you like to come up? Oh, you're asking a question. Anyone else wish to make a comment at all? Okay. So next we'll quickly do a resolution honoring Tom Whitley. So we have unfortunate news in our ANC again. Tom Whitley was a commissioner for a long time. I had the pleasure of serving with him for 4 years, I think. Passed away, and it's very sad and unfortunate. I really liked working with Tom on different environmental issues. So I think you had, Mary Beth had drafted a resolution honoring Tom, if you want to present it.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to say that I think Tom was an inspiration to current commissioners and also to the community. So in that spirit, I'll just read the resolution that I drafted. Whereas Thomas B. Whitley served as an advisory neighborhood commissioner representing Forest Hills and single-member District 3F4 in Washington from 2009 to 2012, he was first elected in a contested race in 2008. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley contributed greatly to transportation and pedestrian safety through his efforts to secure the construction of sidewalks in the neighborhood. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley's efforts resulted in the construction of a much-needed and widely celebrated sidewalk on Brandywine Street, thereby helping to facilitate safer pathways to Murch School, the Forest Hills Playground, the Metro, and buses. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley served as a member of the Neighborhood Sustainability Indicators Pilot Project, which was founded in 2009, and where area citizens developed a vision and established specific sustainability goals for their community. Neighborhood goals were established in the categories of energy, environment, mobility, economy, and social capital. The work of the committee formed the basis for much of the future planning work of the DC Office of Planning, the Van Ness Vision Committee, and Van Ness Main Streets. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley served as a founding member of the Steering Committee of Green Living DC, an organization of neighbors, academics, and city officials which is dedicated to connecting people and resources to create a more sustainable community. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley served as a chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Transportation Planning Board of the Washington Council of Governments. Whereas former Commissioner Whitley showed heartfelt dedication to issues of public safety, planning, and the environment, as well as to his constituents and his community. And whereas former Commissioner Whitley died on June 18, 2015, and the current commissioners of ANC 3F wish to express appreciation for his service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that ANC 3F commends and thanks Thomas B. Whitley for his generous service to our community.
Great. I'll second that. Anyone else want any discussion? No. Mrs. Whitley. Hello. No problem.
I was really very proud of the sidewalk. Anybody who came to visit, we walked over to
All right.
He fought very hard
Yeah.
for that sidewalk, and I can say as his predecessor that he did a lot to help our 04 single-member district. I think he really worked hard on that sidewalk. And I know he made some possible enemies down the street, but they came around, and they have been very happy about it. So I was able to tell him that. I think he was very proud of the sidewalk. Among other things, he did a lot with the environment, with the green
Living
the
Expo.
Green Living.
He was always in charge of.
Very much in that, and he really loved the neighborhood. So it was nice to know him. I didn't get to serve with him, but it was really nice to know. I did know him for the 4600. He was on the decorating committee as well as you are, Carol, and it was a pleasure working with him on that. He will be missed.
Agreed. So I guess let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We will send you a copy. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. next up is Howard University Law School. They have their current campus plan expired, so they're making a new campus plan. So is someone here? Oh, hi. So they're here to just kind of give us an update of what's going on and whatever else they wish to chat about.
Thank you. Should I face this way or that way?
You can face them, and then I'll just turn the camera.
Good evening. My name's Cynthia Giordano. I'm with Saul Ewing Law Firm. And with me
Excuse
this
me?
evening are two...
I apologize. Can I
Sorry,
ask you to...
Giordano, Giordano, Cynthia.
And your first, Cynthia. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. And with me this evening are two representatives from Howard Law School. Maybelle Taylor Bennett is Director of Community, the Howard University Community Association, and Derek Neese Williams is Assistant. Thank you. They will be very involved in this process, and the purpose of really our update this evening is to just let you know that this process is ongoing and to ask the ANC how the ANC might want to participate in the process. And just to summarize, the campus plan is basically an update, and it's basically a status quo plan. There are no new buildings being proposed on the campus. The law school enrollment has actually declined, as you know, is happening, you know, with most law schools and the legal profession in general over the last several years. But there is going to be a relocation of the Divinity School students and faculty to the West Campus. Divinity School currently is on the East Campus of Howard University, which is in Northeast Washington. That's different from the Central Campus, which is closer to the downtown. But the Divinity School is a small school. It's a graduate program. It's about 140 students. And the building that they occupy, there's only one building on a 20-acre campus there. The building that they occupy is in need of substantial repair, and the university is planning to relocate them to the West Campus and then decide what they want to do with the East Campus. But for the foreseeable future and the 10-year span of the West Campus plan, it will assume that the Divinity School will be located on the West Campus. And we feel like there's a certain synergy involved. The Divinity School, as is the law school and Howard University in general, has social justice at its core mission. And as you may recall, the Howard University Law School campus has a beautiful chapel. It used to be a Catholic institution. So I think that it's appropriate. The Howard University Law School campus also has substantial space available in their buildings. The buildings are really the classrooms. There's numerous classrooms that are unoccupied now. And one of the things that I think will really work well is that the law school campus, the law school classes are primarily held in the daytime, and the Divinity School classes are primarily held in the evening. So there will be a traffic study conducted, though, in the fall when the students are back to really drill down on how that's going to work. There is a surface parking lot on the law school campus now, which is sufficient for the law school students, and it's the expectation that with the Divinity School and the different hours that the schools are going to operate, that there should be enough space for everyone. Although the school will look at, as every campus plan does, transportation management initiatives and plans to reduce, automobile traffic to the campus, make more use of the metro. There is currently a shuttle now that operates from the Central Campus to the West Campus and the East Campus. Make sure that that is, serving the purpose well of students that might be commuting between dormitories potentially over on the East Campus or, the Central Campus. So a traffic study will be conducted in the fall, and that will be a major component of this campus plan, and really is the major component, I think, of the campus plan in general, since there is no new buildings being constructed or even any real improvements to the campus. The previous campus plan allowed for a president's house to be located on the campus. It hasn't been built, but we're retaining that element in the future if the president decides that he wants to live on the West Campus. But that is really the only outstanding project that was not built in the old campus plan. There also was an issue with the old library. It was replaced with a new library, and I think it was 1998 or so, and the old library has remained on the campus. The original plan was for it to come down. It hasn't come down. It's not occupied, and there's significant water damage there, but for the time being, the university will still be in the process of deciding what to do with that building. But I think those are the major issues, and we would welcome, Karen Perry has been very involved over the years in working with the West Campus. There is a new dean of the law school, Dean Holly Holly Daniel Walker. Daniel Walker. Anyway, she is she's very personable and very interested in working with the community or having an open door to community concerns. So with that, you know, I will leave it to the ANC to really decide, you know, how you want to participate in the process.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I met with you maybe 2 months ago in a dean, and just Karen Perry was ill. So I think whoever is elected in a week or two will. I'll introduce, and they can work with you. But I think, do you have a sense of timing of when this?
Yes, we're endeavoring to draft, finish drafting the plan and file it the end of August. But from there will be hearings scheduled, and usually those don't occur 2 or 3 months out. So we feel like the transportation element that'll happen in the fall will be filed before, you know, any significant hearing is scheduled. Okay. And so the process would be ongoing, I think, probably for the next 4 to 5 months.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll defer to whoever's elected, but I think in the past, you know, maybe some simple PowerPoint of the plan when it's finally filed, and I don't, since it doesn't sound like anything's changing really, I don't know how much significant discussion will be on it. But,
right. Well, if there are any current issues or you know, almost current issues with the campus and the impact on the community, you know, we'd like to address those as we prepare the plan.
One issue I'd love to see you guys address in your report is just basic sustainability. And I know you guys have done great work on the main campus about it. I'd love to see it apply here. There's 2 issues. You guys are one of the biggest landowners around, so, you know, you have some rainwater runoff there. Anything, you know, that you can, you know, put in that plan about how you'll be dealing with that coming up would be appreciated. And it was brought to my attention, you also have one of the last infestations of kudzu.
Oh, really?
Kudzu.
Kudzu.
And so if you could address that in the plan too, you know, especially with the proximity to Rock Creek Park.
All right. Well, we'll look at that.
Sure.
Right now, the campus is about 20 acres, and it's fairly, you know, undeveloped. There's a lot of open space and green space on the campus. I don't know that there are a lot of trees, but it's hard to know just looking at it sort of where Soapstone Valley Park begins and the campus ends, and that may be where some of this kudzu is occurring, because it's not a forested campus. But we will definitely look at that.
Just a simple issue brought to my attention. I wanted to pass it on, and I'm really excited.
No, I appreciate that.
Cool. Any other commissioners have questions at all at this point? Anyone in the audience have a question? David?
I've got 2 questions. I'm David Bardine. I've got 2 questions for Mr. Giordano. The Divinity School is big news. That could be a huge enrichment to the education resources of our neighborhood. How many students does the Divinity School have? How large is the faculty, and how large is the staff? Do you know offhand?
Yes. I might have to ask for assistance on the faculty and the staff, but it's 140 students. It's not very large.
Faculty is 22, staff is 25.
But faculty and staff would not be there, all day long. I mean, that faculty might come in, teach a class in the evening, go on and all. But we're trying to figure out how that dance is really going to play out.
For what it's worth, Commissioners, to me, whether it's full-time, part-time, anything else, this is an enrichment. This is an association with our neighborhood, which I hope you will look at very positively. In fact, I trust you will. Do you want, before my second question is about environment?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Finish.
There is an unnamed tributary that skirts down behind the parking lot, goes between the parking lot and the next property, and then around and ends up as an unnamed tributary of Soapstone Creek. It's a very important and sensitive water body, and whether it's on Howard's property or on the building's property or on the park property, I really couldn't care less. I think as a prudent steward of the environment, knowing the theory, the spirit of Howard, that the actual plan should do everything you can, whatever was left out the last time, to protect that tributary. Because, Commissioners, that tributary leads to a grove of trees in Soapstone Valley National Park, which is probably the oldest trees in the park. Pre-Civil War trees, an absolutely gorgeous grove. So I know those trees are not on Howard land, but just, we all got to work together on this. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Okay, we'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
Do you happen to know how many of those 140 students would be commuting students and how many would be resident?
There's no residents on the campus.
That would be part of the study, I think. We could make that part of the transportation study.
Okay.
But I think he's saying how many would live on the campus.
Oh, okay, there's no residential use on the campus.
Dave, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. And again, I'm familiar with what Karen has done, working with Howard University. We've worked.
Can you identify yourself?
I'm Dave Donaldson.
And are you with ANC?
I'm not an ANC person, but I'm Ward 3 Democratic
And
Party.
you're running for ANC?
I'm running for the ANC office, correct. However, I'd worked with Karen Perry before on Howard University. I worked 15 years ago. I developed a telecommunications system inside that changed that all out. But that being said, my concern right now, in that community, the Van Ness community, is the traffic. And traffic study is very important to us, primarily because the population, the auto population in that area, Van Ness Street, where they come in, there's no access out to Upton Street. And that actually, where the Howard Law School is, it faces the entry to Van Ness East, coming to the Van Ness cul-de-sac to the end. And the opposite side, on the south side of that, is Upton Street. And I don't think they're using anything right now. But that being, my point is that the traffic study would be very important, not only to the community itself, but also to the residents there. And most of the people that are students that are going and staff that go there, a lot of it is transient, where they're taking public transportation in and out of there. If you go to the lot upstairs, there's not a lot of car traffic up there, and it's limited because it's got to be pass type. But I encourage the study, and if it's an opportunity, I'd work with you in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
You have a question?
No, I thought you said you had a question. Did you have a question?
The question is, when this traffic study is finished, the point I wanted to ask is, what is the resolve of the traffic study, and do you present it to the ANC?
Absolutely. It will be filed. It will be presented to the ANC, and it will be filed as part of the campus plan.
Right. Do you work with transportation and roads, for Councilman Che?
GDOT, you mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. They will review it, and they will weigh in on the campus plan.
Well, Councilman Che, actually, who is also the chair of the transportation committee there, have you worked with her office on that?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Does anyone else in the audience have a question about this at the moment? Okay.
Can I just ask something for the record of the minutes?
Sure.
We had two other representatives, and I didn't catch your names. I apologize.
Maybell.
Maybell Taylor Bennett. Okay.
Derek East Williams, that's spelled D-E-R.
Derek? Okay, thank you very much.
Last name is Niece, N-I-E-C, Williams.
Great.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. All right, so next up we have discussion and possible resolution regarding the application for historic designation of 3020 Albemarle Street Northwest. Mary Beth?
Okay, thank you. We're very fortunate in Forest Hills to have had Marge Elfin, Paul Williams, and Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance draft this wonderful book on our history. And on page 53, you can see a photograph of the home at 3020 that is at issue tonight. So the home at 3020 Albemarle Street was built in 1924 by a well-known architect, Horace Peasley, who was also a well-known landscape architect. And the home was sited right at the entrance to Soapstone Valley Park, which is a very important aspect of the criteria that the Historic Preservation Review Board considers. It's also important to our community as potentially one of the most beautiful places in Washington. If anybody has seen the fire call boxes that are painted throughout Forest Hills, this home is also featured on one of the call boxes. I believe it's at the corner of Ellicott and 30th Place. The hearing on this property at the HPRB is on Thursday morning. And in preparation for that hearing, the staff report has recommended that the property receive historic designation. So I will be testifying in support of that at the hearing, and I believe we have a number of people here tonight who are also interested in talking about the property.
All right, are you proposing a resolution? Or do you want them
Yeah,
to speak,
I make a
or
motion.
What do you want to do?
I make a motion, sorry.
Did you want to hear from us?
Yes, yes.
Well,
We just need a motion on the table.
Let's get a motion and we can talk about the property in the motion. I think that's simpler than just talking about the property.
Yes, I move that we support the historic designation for 3020 Albemarle Street.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Andrew seconded. Okay, so I guess, I mean, technically, usually do commissioner questions, but I think for me, it would be helpful, the people that filed this thing are here, right?
Yes.
And then is the owner here? Okay, so the owner's here. So I think for me to understand, I guess maybe the people that filed it could talk for like a couple minutes, and then the owner could tell us his views, and we could go from there. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yes.
All right.
Sounds great.
So I don't know. So I guess it was filed by the, who is it? Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance. Is there someone from the Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance? And we sort of talked about the property previously, so at a previous meeting.
In addition to Barbara talking, I have a handout for everyone and some explanation. I'm prepared to give some explanation as well.
Okay. So if you want to chat for a couple minutes about why this was filed and why you think it's should be designated, I guess.
My name is Barbara Bates.
Barbara, can you come up to the microphone just so the...
Barbara Bates. I'm a longtime resident of Forest Hills. I have been working on the history and architecture of Forest Hills for almost 14 years now. I'm a member of the Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance. This is the second nomination for a landmark property in Forest Hills. The first was the Owl's Nest, Appleton V. Clark property, 1897. So this is the second nomination the Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance has supported. They've also sponsored the first Forest Hills History Day. That was in October of 2004. The book on Forest Hills, which Mary Beth mentioned, in 2006. The Art on Call project box, which the ANC supported the installation of all of the art on all 8 fire and police call boxes. So with that, the significance of 3020 Albemarle Street is not new to the citizens of Forest Hills. The former owner of the house came up to my booth on domestic architecture in 2004 and was very delighted that her house had been, her Mediterranean-style house by Horace Peasley was on exhibit. And it then went on to be part of the book. And as Mary Beth said, the Art on Call project selected the house, Forest Hills at Home. This is what the call box looks like. And this was the preparatory painting by the artist Mary Belcher for the call box. This is 3020 Soapstone Valley. It was designed by a master architect and landscape designer in 1924, among the first houses to be built on Albemarle Street as the back of it faces Soapstone Valley. And it's the only one that stands right at the entrance to the Soapstone Valley Trail. The challenges to building on that lot, such a strategic place, are evident, and it stands as a sentinel watching over the valley, and it's so much a part of our architectural history, architectural and cultural history. A number of Forest Hills residents have supported this. A few of them include Marge Elfin, who was editor of the book, the Forest Hills book, Amy Ballard, who's preservation officer for the Smithsonian Institution, and she did the landmark application for the Sears building, which you may know about. Others are here. I'm also a member of the DC Preservation League, and I've asked Sally Burke, who's a member of the DC Preservation League, to say a few words about the architectural detail of the house. Sally received the Lifetime Achievement Award for Excellence in Historic Preservation this past May, so I'm honored to introduce Sally Burke.
I know you all met me.
She's taller than I am.
You all met me in May when I came to present the landmark nomination for the Sedgwick Gardens apartment building, which I'm sure you all know got designated, including the lobby and the elevator lobbies, which are unique to that building. And when I was here for that meeting, I heard Barbara present the fact that this house was threatened by being advertised as "or build your dream house." And I was astounded because I'm a native Washingtonian. I've lived on Wyoming Avenue north of DuPont Circle for 35 years. Every time I drive up Connecticut Avenue, every time I make a detour on Albemarle Street to see that house, because I think that house is so spectacular. And I have years of education in architectural history. So I said to Barbara, let me know what I can do to help you save this house. And she wrote the landmark nomination, and I've been helping her to get support. The designation not only has the support of the Preservation Office, but experts, university professors, the Secretary of the Commission of Fine Arts. There are a lot of people who agree that the house is significant. And it does, in fact, have to be significant, and there is criteria. And so before if I do this in order of the pages, I don't know how many of you know how many houses there are by Horace Peasley in Forest Hills, but Barbara told me that there were 10. I couldn't picture them all here. But there's also a database for all the building permits in the city, so it isn't that difficult to find out how many houses Peaslee did, and some of them are pictured here. So I started to tell you that there are criteria for designating a property. It isn't just because I went to look at it every time I went up Connecticut Avenue. It has to be significant. And in this case, it is significant as the work of Horace Peaslee, a master architect responsible for Meridian Hill Park, the Fort Lincoln Cemetery, and so many wonderful things in the city that I'm sure you don't want to listen to them all. But he was also an activist in terms of getting regulations for architecture and creating a planning oversight organization. And he was a brilliant architect in his own right. But I contend, and many of the people in support of this house contend, that even if it weren't the work of Horace Peaslee, it is an astounding piece of architecture. You'll see in the other pictures that Peaslee's clients were hiring him to do colonial revival, Mediterranean revival, Tudor revival. That's what people wanted in the close-in earliest 20th century suburbs. But he happened to get a client, the Davises, who wanted their specific, what they wanted on this site, and Peaslee had the skill to give it to them, which is a vertical house with one spectacular room at the top. And I know you see it from the street. It sort of looks like an artist's garret from the street. But in fact, on the soapstone side, it's surrounded by terrace so that one can walk out and see terrace. At any rate, there's criteria for designating a landmark, and it meets the landmark. But I thought that I just might talk a little bit about what designation actually means.
No, let's talk about why this is worthy of the landmark.
Okay.
Because we talk about that a lot.
Well, but I've been told that there's been some misunderstandings here about it. For instance...
I'm curious. I mean, I think we've talked about this house before, and in all honesty, I'm
But
curious
have you
why...
talked about what designation means?
We have, yes. And I think the commissioners here have met with HPO, and we understand what it means. So, I think what's useful here is tell us in a couple minutes why this is worthy of designation, because I don't.
It is
because that's what I'm interested in.
Okay, it is a unique house, and there is not another one like it in the city. So it's not only valuable to Forest Hills; it's valuable to the city at large. It is a brilliant combination of Mediterranean revival and the kind of visited Europe and reading about in contemporary journals. And that was basically a very simplified version of architecture, as you'll see in this photo of a house by Adolf Loos in Vienna. This is the sort of thing that was happening in Europe in the early 20th century, not in America. This emphasizing the mass rather than the decorative details is something that happened far earlier in Europe and came later to America. But Peaslee was in the forefront of doing this sort of thing and presaged architecture that was to come. But when all is said and done, it is simply a work of art. That is it. And designation really does only one thing. It prevents demolition of the house, except for a special project, which might be a firehouse, a hospital, a metro station. Otherwise, it's very difficult to demolish it. And it's a work of art in its own right, just as a Renoir or a Degas or any work of art. If the owner doesn't want it, does that mean throw it away, burn it? No, it means sell it, find somebody else who loves it and wants it. It's a treasure, a cultural treasure to the community, to the city, possibly to the country. So the designation is simply to make it very difficult to demolish it. That's it. It's pretty simple.
Okay, great, thanks. So then I guess Do we have questions for them, the applicants? Do you want to hear from the owners?
I have one last question for
Okay,
the applicants.
Andrew, I guess ask a quick question. Let's have the owner. come up then.
Just a word or two about the timing of this.
What do you mean about the timing?
Why is this being filed now as opposed to a year ago, 2 years ago, 10
Yeah, I
years
mean,
ago?
I think
that's
someone
an excellent-
someone
that's
mentioned
an
in
excellent-
2004 they thought the owner who agreed that it was a historic whatever landmark.
I can't-
So
I
why
can't
wasn't it
answer-
filed then?
I can't answer for that, but the ANC could in fact have taken the responsibility for having a survey done of Forest Hills and identifying
Sure.
the significant properties, and this one would have stood out above all the others. A survey needs to be done, it's true. In this case, there's a threat to the house, and it often happens like that.
What
The
threat
city's-
is there? What threat?
Unprotected, it can be demolished.
But is there a plan to demolish it?
Well, it was being advertised as renovate or build your dream house. Build your dream house infers getting rid of that house, and it's,
You're inferring that.
But you're inferring that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no demolition permit filed. There's no building permit. And in all honesty, I
There hasn't
know
been-
people that looked at this house for sale that wanted to just renovate it. So
that
I
would be
guess what's the
wonderful.
threat? What's the threat?
That would be wonderful if somebody would buy it and renovate it. That would be wonderful.
but-
And that's everyone's hope. That is what everyone is hoping for, that it will be bought and renovated.
Would
There are
designation,
other-
would
But why-
designation preclude that?
Oh, absolutely not. Well, that's what I was going to explain to you, but you can read it on the back page if you would like. It does not, designation does not preclude alterations. It does not preclude additions.
Does
it
it
doesn't-
limit the sorts of alterations or additions that can occur?
The alteration or addition on the exterior has to respect the integrity of the house. So, because it's an iconic house, and the iconic aspect of it is what you see from the street, any addition or alteration would have to respect that. In no way is it prohibited. No way. Basically, it does one thing, makes it difficult to demolish it. And I can't answer to you why this wasn't done sooner. I can't answer that question. And if another one comes up, you can ask that question again. So it would be a good idea to survey the neighborhood and determine which of these are deserving of it, or a historic district here.
Absolutely.
Sally, I just want to clarify to the point about renovations. The historic designation would not preclude any kind of work on the interior. Is that correct?
That's right. Right. And defining renovation as improving or bringing it back to its condition before, that is applauded. You know, that is what everyone wants to see, is it occupied, renovated, and kept for posterity.
And what about the rear?
Excuse me a minute.
About the rear of the property, inside of the property, because it is, the way it's cited, which was pointed out in the HBO's document by Kim Williams, is that part of this is the siting of a very big significance is the siting of the house. So when we talked to Tim Dene, he said that additions could be done on the back of the house and to the side of the house, depending on what the side lots are, obviously with zoning.
So he said the same thing I said, that the iconic image of the house is what
Right,
you
so
want
it's
to
basically
respect.
what you're
So
seeing
you already
from-
knew that you could petition the
Yeah,
city. You
from-
already knew that.
From the back,
Yeah,
from
well,
the street, from the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think another question that came up with Tim was whether you could put solar panels. And I got clarification from him today that you can put solar panels as long as they're not visible from the front.
The
There's
goal
no such
of
thing.
preservation is to
There's no such thing.
retain- The goal of preservation is to retain a building,
I don't know
to
where you
enhance a
put 'em.
building,
House.
to make sure that it's there for generations to come.
I mean, but-
It is not,
Yeah, Hearst Hall
and
has
to make
solar
it
panels.
livable
so.
and usable for people today and save it for posterity. The same way you would do with any cultural artifact. Books, paintings, music, preserve it for use now and enjoyment now and for people in the future. That doesn't mean, just like with music, you can have different interpretations, different variations of music. You can do the same with a building.
Can you
Sorry,
explain
I
a
said
little bit
exterior, I mean
more,
the facade.
more
the
do you
front.
mean by respecting the exterior and what that means and who decides if it meets like
I mean, it's too shady there anyway.
The intent, whatever is done to the house, under the law, and what the Historic Preservation Review Board does, is review changes that are compatible. That's all, just compatible. And compatible means that whatever is done to it is compatible with the original design. That doesn't necessarily mean copying the original design. It means in scale, in the fenestration in that house is very well considered and very important. So any fenestration that you would put on in addition would need to respect what is already there.
Sorry, fenestration, that's a big word for me. What do you?
Windows.
Windows. Also, there's some very prominent walls to this property. Would that be covered by the historic preservation application?
That's an excellent question because Peasley's office records and drawings are not extant. No one's been able to find them. So whether or not that wall is original is not known. It certainly is, if it was a change, a later change, it's certainly compatible. In fact, it seems to enhance the property. But I really can't answer that question about if there were a proposal to take down the wall or change the wall, what the answer would be.
So would that be covered by the designation?
Yes, because when it is designated, it is the site that is designated, and that wall is on the site. But that doesn't mean that the wall couldn't be made lower, higher, perforated. No.
Well, one more thing about the site. Now, we've talked about like its view from Soapstone, looking out. Is that the site we're looking? What's the site line?
Oh, the lot.
Just from the street?
The lot for which taxes are paid. That's the site. When the nomination
completely
was
around it. Completely around it.
I think he's asking when I brought up about the siting.
Yes.
It's because of how it is located or situated on the boundaries of the property. And this one is fairly unique in that it is seen from three sides. Most houses are seen from one or two sides.
I'm asking what's designated.
Yeah, so I think he's asking.
What's designated is the tax lot.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should. We're like mixing terms here. So what the historic appearance of it, that would need to be respected in the event of alterations or additions. The perspective is from the street, or the perspective is...
Yes, it's what Tim said. Tim and I agree completely. It is respecting the facade, what you see from the street. That is the iconic nature of that house.
However, I have a question to that because what you stated and what is really not stated in the HBO report is that you said the room was very important. The back room that was a porch at one point.
No, I said the room at the top.
At the top, on the third floor? Okay,
I said the room
floor.
at the top is spectacular and has terraces outside of it with a fabulous view.
And it's not enclosed, it's like a...
No, it's the room. It's a room. It's the third floor. It's the room at the top.
But you said it had a terrace? Off the room? Okay.
Like a balcony.
Like a balcony, right. It's kind of incrustated at the top, yeah.
Just bring it back to my thing. In terms of if renovations or additions were made to the back that were not visible from Albemarle, would that fall under the purview of the Historic Preservation Review Board?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any change. That is what they review. Are the
Okay.
changes considered to be compatible?
Okay, thank you.
But they can make, an owner can make
changes, but
and do
HPRB
additions,
will
but they have to
them.
review it, just like with the Springland Farm.
Yeah, same thing.
We had to look at that, and if they wanted to build on to that, we have looked at
so
that
like
before.
when that owner renovated
Right.
the house and added additions,
Yes.
they had the whole process, and HPRB will say we don't like this or that or whatever, or they
Correct.
like
Or
that,
we do like this.
yeah, or whatever, and they modify it. Same as Sedgwick Gardens.
Well, pros and cons.
So, okay, so I think the owner is here.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
since you're an expert in this, and I assume you read the HBO report, I noticed that most of the report, 2/3 of the report is written about the architect.
I agree with that.
Only 1/3 is written about the house. which is very interesting. He also talks about that Peasley was very influential among his peers and had the greatest impact on the city's built environment, however, through his civic and public activism. So a lot of this report is about the man, which is great. I mean, he was an architect. He's not an IMP, he's not, but he is of the time, or there's ways to talk about architects and whether they're relevant or not relevant. But there's a whole paragraph where he talks about the house. Is it he? Kim's a she. The nomination describes the house as an avant-garde interpretation of the Mediterranean style, distinguished by its verticality, block-like massing, and polar surfaces. The house is indeed difficult to classify stylistically. That, from an architectural stance, if you look at this house, it has many different styles incorporated into the front, the walls, the side, the back, the roof.
Not many.
Well,
maybe
quite a few.
But
It's
he's
kind of
like-
a mutt in the architectural word
An ingenious.
I know I'm going to get
I don't think
crucified
she
for
means
that.
not derogatory.
I don't.
think that's a
It's
unique
just,
characteristic.
it's, you know, I like.
The house was
Sure, I
designed.
agree.
Yeah.
The house was
Yeah.
designed during a period in American
Right.
architecture when eclecticism was very
Correct.
popular, which meant taking clues from a variety of different
Right.
styles.
So it has many different styles.
But a
incorporated.
master takes those clues and puts them together in a balanced, beautiful composition.
I wanted your take on that
Yeah.
because I thought that was important from her analysis.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the honor, would you like to come up and?
Oh, I would like to say one more thing, if you would let me. The only, and because I neglected to put it in here, the only, and I said this when I came for Sedgwick Gardens, the only testimony that the chair of HPRB entertains is whether or not the property meets the criteria for designation.
Right.
That is the only testimony that is entertained at the hearing. Thank you.
Okay. It's okay. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
Sorry, what?
Introduce yourself. quickly.
I'm Peter Gordon. I grew up in that house along with my brother John. My parents bought it in late December of 1955, and my mother lived there until she died this past November. Right now, the woman who is my mother's primary caregiver over the last few years of her life is living there and is now the caretaker for the house. I come and stay there from time to time, as do members of my family. I'm staying there now. I walked up here from there, as I did walk to Merge School many, many years ago. But I think that my brother John and I are now the owners of the house, and we are opposed to this designation. We are opposed because we do not believe the house meets the criteria, and we believe that for the kinds of reasons that have been suggested here, it would impair the property substantially. So the house is one that elicits very strong reactions in some people, very positive ones, not everyone. Architects are very divided over what it is and whether it's anything at all. I love living there. I love going there, but I can't, my family can't afford to keep a vacation home in DC. We have to sell it. We put the house on the market. We have never planned to raise it. We've not submitted a permit. We've not done anything like that. The grounds for the designation shift among the various proposals, and that makes it a little bit hard to address the issues, but as I understand it, Peasley is recognized as a master, but that's not sufficient for designation as a landmark. It has to be a notable example of his work. And it's not clear at all that it is a notable example of his work. He has work in the District of Columbia that received awards at the time that they were designed and were written up in architectural journals. This is not one of those houses. So it is not clear at all. It's a notable example. It's not clear at all that it is a house that contributed distinctively to the development of anything about the District of Columbia's architecture in any way. The fact that it is unique or odd or I've come to eccentric is interesting, but it's also part of the problem. It doesn't, as I understand it, make it sufficient for a landmark. So I'd like to address some of the issues about the house, some of the reasons that give me skepticism about the claims that are made about it, because I know a great deal about the house. So, for example, I do know that my parents constructed the wall. They constructed the wall because my father was a physician, a psychiatrist. He had his office in the ground floor. The wall was built to provide privacy for the patients, separating the entrance to his office from the front door to the house. So that is, I know to be true. If you look at the pictures, particularly in the nomination, but also there in one of them, you can see that the picture prominently shows the small glass addition at ground level, or at really below the main level. That was my father's office. That was done by my parents so the house would suit their needs. And it doesn't seem to detract badly from anyone's opinion about the house, but it was done to meet a specific need, and it doesn't really seem to in any way fit into the descriptors of the house that are given about it architecturally. My parents had the back porch glassed in. That was noted as a sensitive change to the house. My mother said that the back porch was not usable because it was always too hot, too cold, or too dirty, and the glass solved that. There are other things noted in this, that Peaslee was best known as a landscape architect, and there's speculation about the landscape, about the walk, about the plantings. My parents put in the azaleas and rhododendrons. The front walk is noted as possibly designed by Peaslee. In fact, I know the original walk was torn up in the 90s and replaced with the one that was there because it was a loose stone walk, or large flagstones, but loose, not set close. And as my parents got older, they were concerned about a trip hazard for them and their friends. Those stones were then distributed in various ways around the yard, in the back, for little pathways there. So this does not reflect Peaslee's work. It reflects my mother's work. So I think she would have said yes. But, and I think that if someone told her in 2004 that they loved her house, she would have been very pleased, and she would have accepted that graciously and been happy about it. And if they said they wanted to landmark it and restrict its future uses, she would have handed them their hats. So I think that should, when you ask why not in 2004, if she were alive and here, you wouldn't dare do this.
It doesn't restrict the use.
I didn't interrupt you. Basically, my parents did a lot of changes to the house. It is not clear at all it meets any of the standards. The notion that it is a key transitional piece, which is written up in the HPO report, between academic eclecticism and modernism, seems like a real reach. You know, if it should be recognized as that, I expect you all will have to have meetings where you deal with traffic on Albemarle Street, where the busloads of architecture students come by to gawk at it. So I don't think that there's a strong case for saying it really is a landmark. Now, I'd like to come to the question of Forest Hills, which, as I said, I grew up here. I come back here all the time. I like it very much. I don't live here. I'm not a resident, but I like it very much. And one of the first things I did when I saw that this nomination was coming forward was to say, well, what are the other landmarks in the neighborhood? And I went to the Preservation Office webpage, and I found the database. And the first thing I found was you could search by street. I went, Albemarle, Brandywine, Chesapeake, Davenport. It was easy. Nothing. There are houses in Tenleytown, but nothing in Forest Hills. In fact, then I found the map, or the early part of Forest Hills. I found the map. There is one house, the Owl's Nest House, as I'm sure you know, that is north of Albemarle, east of Connecticut, and west of the park that has been designated landmark. Not a single one. And I can tell you there are magnificent houses architecturally in that neighborhood. And if you wanted to start by protecting them, protecting the magnificent architecture in the neighborhood, you would not start with that house. And no first floor bathroom. It looks big from the outside, but it isn't. It has a large basement, but the ceilings are 6.5 feet high, where there isn't ductwork. So someone wanting to buy a house in that neighborhood now is going to want to do something substantial to it. And the notion that they'd have to propose something that fit the extremely vague stylistic characterization of this house, I think would be a real detriment. My wife and I have done renovations to our house. It was hard to come up with something that met our goals, met our budget, and that we could both agree on. If you threw in these criteria and a downtown office, I think that you're probably asking for something that most people would not want to undertake. So I think that those reasons we're very concerned about this landmark designation. The last thing I'd like to say is that we're also very concerned about the manner in which this application was generated and came forward. The application includes photos of the interior of the house. Those photos were taken on 2 visits to the house done without the permission or knowledge of my brother or me. And I don't think that that is right. That involved people here. It involved other people. It involved a member of the HPO staff. And so I do not think that that's a legitimate way to generate a proposal to landmark a house. And I think that it's not a way that you want your neighborhood to run, where as someone gets older and passes away, then people under whatever guise get access to the house and perhaps generate a proposal to have it landmarked. So we do ask you, my brother and I, that you deny this petition, that you not endorse it, and you do so because it doesn't merit it on the facts. On the facts, it's at best extremely questionable and left up to experts. There are no criteria clear enough that a non-expert could evaluate stated in these proposals. And then as a community organization, you deny it because you don't want to have a piecemeal approach to housing preservation in Forest Hills. You have zoning overlays that protect the neighborhood generally. If you want to go after structures, impose a historic district, but don't go picking on one house. And finally, I don't think you should condone entrance into people's property and inspection of it and photographs of it to be used that give rise to a proposal. You shouldn't condone that by approving this. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess, do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Gordon?
Yeah.
Mr. Gordon, do you mind answering some questions for us?
No.
All right, cool. Thanks. So, Andrew?
2 quick questions. One is, I understand the grounds on which you've articulated very well the grounds for asking that we don't approve the historic designation. Your motivation is mainly because you're concerned about resale of the house?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that's a completely legitimate concern that all of us as homeowners view our properties as a very important part of our financial situation for ourselves and for our children.
And what about the advertising of the house as a...
Well, I think that clearly we should have had the people who wrote the nomination write the ad. I'm not sure how credible it would have been. I think that it is what it is. It's something the Realtor came up with. We should have looked at it. I think that it is, in fact, despite its appearance, a structure that's difficult, and it's not a structure that meets what most people want for homes these days. So the Realtor put that in. Certainly we could have stopped him. Certainly in retrospect, we wish we had.
Does anyone else have questions?
If we don't approve this, or if we don't endorse this and it doesn't get designated, and you put it back on the market, would you be willing not to emphasize the
I absolutely. Well, I mean, my reaction, one, I was a little bit shocked and hurt when I read it, but the other thing is, it sort of says there's something really wrong here. And I mean, the house has challenges, but I think by and large, it's the house and the property are worth more than the property. And, I think that it was a mistake, not only in terms of arousing neighborhood annoyance, but it was a mistake in terms of implicitly
suggesting there's a problem, as opposed to suggesting there's something special about the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there any other commissioners have questions for him? No. Someone in the audience, we'll work our way. So Dave, you'll be second.
So I take it what you basically are saying is that, in your view, a projected buyer of this property, it's obviously a very valuable piece of land, so they pay a substantial amount of money for it, which is your hope and which I very much respect. But I take it what you're concerned about is that in order for somebody to buy and live in this house, they're going to have to do some substantial renovation to enlarge it on the exterior, and that recreating this style is a real impediment to anybody being able to do anything nice with this house.
Well, I think that, it's described as Mediterranean revival, Spanish eclectic, European minimalism with hints of American modernism to come, and having aspects of a medieval tower and Moorish influences.
So find an architect who can do that.
Well, or find a government committee that can decide that an addition meets those criteria. To me, the fact that it's eclectic means that it's
I work for the government, we can do it.
The fact that it's eclectic means ultimately any addition would be a matter of taste. If I could have my way, I'd live there myself. I would build an addition, I'd make it glass and steel.
And it would probably get approved.
Well, probably.
Not in this town.
Dave,
Other questions?
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question, and I have a great appreciation of art and architecture and sculpture. The question I have is, and the point, because to move from a property and an asset property, sort of keep the architectural points in that. What you're asking, just want to make sure, is that to reserve the property as a historical type of event, but as the architecture and everything else like that. What is the inside? They can do whatever they want inside, except for the viewing room upstairs. This part up here.
I have no idea what they would actually need permission. I gather that the expressed interest originally in landmarking the interior as well was abandoned. What it means in terms of changes to the house, what could be done without. I gather anything completely not visible from the street could be done. There is no first floor bathroom. I do know that my mother talked to every contractor in DC about whether one could be squished into a closet without carving out part of the living room, and they all told her she was crazy. Couldn't find one who could do it. I think there would have. My objection is that anyone thinking of buying that property would want to put an addition on it. And the complexities inherent in doing that just to meet their own goals, tastes, and affordability are great. If you add to that the need that it meet a set of very diffuse criteria, and that it becomes something I think would discourage buyers very seriously.
And the other question, okay, and I think Adam alluded to it earlier, is that, or one of the commissioners was that we were here in 2004, now we're 2015. Why is it taking? Why are we back here again talking about the same subject?
I wasn't here in 2004. My understanding is that there was a conversation with someone in the Preservation League or someone responsible for the artwork on the call boxes, and they commented to my mother that it was a wonderful historic property, and she agreed. She's polite. She loved her house, and she appreciated it if other people liked it. I'm sure it was sincere, but there was never a conversation about landmark designation.
Marjorie?
Yeah, is it possible from a real estate perspective that a house, maybe selling, I'm the answer to this, houses that go up for sale that have historic designation are maybe valued, the value increases because of that there are people who appreciate that aspect of it?
I'm sure that there are some number of buyers who would be attracted to that. There probably are a lot of buyers who are discouraged. And how that balances out, I think, is a matter of judgment. If you ask a real estate agent, I think you get a pretty clear answer. And I don't know if it's correct, but you get a pretty clear answer that you will not increase the value of the house by having it designated, because people are scared of the limitations and complexities that imposes. And that there are a few people who would want the cachet of having it landmarked, but in general, if they really have sense, it's because they like the house and they want the house. And it doesn't really matter if it's a landmark, because once they own it, they can have it that way. So I think it doesn't really get the owner much of anything.
It's interesting because I know of many people who look for historically designated, or so I'm just curious from a real estate perspective.
I answered that on the last page where I wanted to explain historic designation a little bit. I addressed that. As a matter of fact, historic houses do in fact attract more people.
Is there any other questions for Mr.
And they're
Gore?
advertised as such.
David, do you have a question for him?
I have a comment.
Comment?
I appreciate what Mr. Gordon has said, and I think he's made some points I assume he'll make on Thursday to the Historic Preservation Review Board, which has to ultimately decide and strike the balance in the interpretation, not you. But I want to tell you about my experience as a member of this commission when the last landmark designation came up, the Owl's Nest. Okay, I think I was chairman, if I'm not mistaken. I'll review it. Mr. Gordon will listen. Let me make very clear at the beginning, I had nothing to do with this application that you're talking about today. Okay? I filed, I think it was Monday, but forgive my memory sometimes weak, a supporting document, and I included in it some photographs I took, I believe, Sunday over the weekend, but they were all taken from the Soapstone Valley Trail, Mr. Gordon. None of them, I didn't trespass on your property. I admired your property. I admire what I heard you say about living there since 1955. I was a member of this commission then. I was not involved in the proposal to designate the Owl's Nest. It came to me the way it's come to you. Unlike probably all of you, pleasant, charming, delightful a gentleman as Mr. Gordon is, I was much closer to the people who had the ownership interest and were disturbed at the idea of landmarking than any of you are. I just want you to understand, they were people I knew, an organization that I had befriended. I had many controversies, or some controversies, some very, very, very public, okay? And I'm still a supporter of that organization. But that was not the issue. I was a member of this commission. I had taken an oath of office, had to do with laws which were administered not by this ANC, all you do is advise, but by a Historic Preservation Review Board. And then if it goes beyond it, it could be a federal agency too, but the Historic Preservation Review Board. My understanding of the situation was that the proponents, which happen to include the Forest Hills Alliance, one of the proponents here, had made a good, solid, professional case. These cases can always, I assume, be debated like almost any other legal controversy or governmental agency regulatory controversy. You've been in all kinds of zoning cases, and this is an aspect of zoning, and you know there are often two sides. And it may well be that what Mr. Gordon has to tell them about such things as just take the wall for one example, that his personal experience, whether he has architectural expertise or not, will persuade him, and maybe there'll be architects on different sides. But that's the board's going to decide. I made some people extremely unhappy by doing what I thought my oath of office required me to do. I'm not preaching to you, I'm just reporting to you. We voted to support the designation, and the board approved the designation. Several things happened afterwards, including very specifically the ultimate buyer of the property, who was the owner today of the property, wanted to remove some parts of the owl's nest, went through the process, and did in fact remove some parts of the owl's nest. He wanted to add to the owl's nest. He went through the process, and he did in fact add to the owl's nest. This is part of the system of law that we have in the District of Columbia. Now, I don't claim it's perfect, and you may have suggestions for amending the law, which is a very appropriate thing for ANC commissioners to do. But tonight you're not talking about amending the law or amending the procedure. You're talking about whether to go to the Historic Preservation Review Board and oppose a designation which some people who seem to have expertise have favored. And I've told you, I just wanted to make clear I supported them, but I don't claim to have that kind of architectural expertise. Some people may oppose. The board will decide. But I don't understand why you should consider, although I may be wrong, but why you should consider from where you are as elected officials of the District of Columbia to take a position that this is not meritorious when so many people think it is meritorious. If you have doubts, it seems to me you stay out of it. If you think it's, but that's up to you. I can tell you from my own personal experience, you may remember I wrote an article, I was in Tel Aviv last summer, and it happens that I wrote an article and it covered some houses built in exactly the same time period, and some of them exactly the same kind of eclectic claims for them. And I've since seen in another fancy glossy magazine which came out in Israel this year, that particular technical house is almost to the date. But that's let the board decide that, it seems to me. However, the fact of the matter is the Owl's Nest stands, it was sold, somebody who valued it, somebody who made the changes minus, the made the changes plus, and has hosted the President of the United States there in a great big fundraising party. So that can happen. Two-party. Thank you.
Thank you for
some of that.
Sure.
I'd like to first of all say that I still think that you have an issue here where primarily Forest Hills has been protected by land restrictions, restrictions on slopes, restrictions building on slopes, restrictions on tree removal. The overlays that were put into effect in Forest Hills strongly affect 3020 Albemarle Street because of trees and because of slopes. I think if you look at the Owl's Nest property, which I run by when I'm in town, I go running, and I've always liked it, it has far fewer such restrictions. The opportunities there for adding to it were much easier. Further, it has a much more consistent style. But I think that the larger question is, do you want a historic district? Do you want to apply these same rules to everyone? Then you don't have to make what is really a extremely difficult, in this case, I think, question of judgment about architecture, which, you know, I believe you are not qualified to make. I don't believe I'm qualified to make it, but I certainly don't believe you are. I think that you should not support this just because some people who live in your neighborhoods want to keep things looking the way they always have. You know, that doesn't, you know, that is a basis, that's a political basis for making a judgment about a matter of style and design and history. So I actually do not understand why this board has any, commission is asked to comment on this in any case, because we're told that this is a matter of architectural history. And so I would say, you know, following on what was said, you know, it's fine with me if you make no recommendation at all. I think if you make a recommendation, you are taking a position on a very ambiguous case of architecture, and you are condoning a process where a particular property was selected out when there are many, many others that could be considered, and where the process involved really inappropriate access to the house, that the kind of activity that I do not think the people in this neighborhood really want going on, and they really would not want you all to condone it by approving the proposal, the application that arose from it.
Okay, thanks. David, so we've had a lot of discussion, and I appreciate the advice you gave. I mean, I think at this point we can talk for another 3 hours on this. I think
I just want you to remember, because none of you were on the board then, the Owl's Nest was a sudden thing, last minute. Many people on the other side felt it was something aimed at their project.
But there are other
So
mitigating circumstances.
I wasn't guys, the Owl's Nest is a done deal. I appreciate your advice.
And the slope overlay does not prevent
I appreciate
the raising of a house.
I appreciate the Owl's Nest experience. I was not part of the ANC then, but I understand a little bit of it. But for this property here, so the motion on the table is to support it, which was seconded. Are there any other commissioner comments on the motion? Otherwise, we'll vote. So,
yeah,
Andrea,
I'd like to ask.
Sure.
I'll keep it very short.
Quick.
When I identify myself as working for the U.S. government, I work for the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC.
Oh, cool.
And my job at OPIC is to write political risk insurance.
What's your name?
Against Mark Stuckart. I live on Chesapeake Street. My wife and I and daughter, we've lived there for 14 years. We go by the house hundreds of times every year. But my job at OPIC is to protect property rights, to protect investors when they invest in developing world countries from confiscation, expropriation, nationalization. We're taking of property through eminent domain, which is a right of government, but if they do it, they have to provide fair, just, equitable, and prompt compensation. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the commissioners very much, and you guys have to listen to all these controversies back and forth. This is a tough job. Appreciate your service. But my take on this, and Mr. Gordon, Peter, I've never met you before, but I studied architecture at Williams College under Milo Beach and with Stoddard. And what I like about Forest Hills is the diversity. I like the fact that Travis Price is doing some very cool, innovative stuff. Some people don't like that, but I like that. I like, the campuses of Yale or Harvard or places like that where there is diversity. And I combine that with sort of a fundamental property rights, and it strikes me as not good, the way that this has gone about. It strikes me as not fair. It strikes me as a group of people trying to foist a change on a property owner when there are literally dozens of much more architecturally significant homes in Forest Hills, both south,
Forest Hills, North Forest Hills. So I won't take up more of your time, but I would urge the commission to either be neutral or preferably to say, we're not in favor of this article for those reasons. Thanks.
Great, thank you for your comments. So I think at this point, we can just go down the line. Whoever has comments on the motion on the table, Andrew.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Ray if she's willing to table this and then put 3020 back on the list when we do the survey and have it included among many others that we are going to recommend that get historic designation.
I don't know if we table it.
Well, there's this fundamental question there. If we table it,
If we table it, we have no input on it.
Correct.
Which means it's entirely them versus Mr. Gordon.
And then they can't file again for
5 years.
No, if
Is
it's
it 1 year?
If
or
it's,
5?
if we make no comment, whatever, and then Mr. Gordon will go on Thursday with the applicants, and they'll all discuss. Then the board will either designate the property in which it is designated until such time it is no longer designated for whatever reason. If it is not designated, then I think it could be refiled in a year.
It's 1 year.
1 year. So 365 days later, they could reapply the same thing, I guess. So that's kind of.
It's a 1 year.
1 year. 1 year, not 5 years.
So that's my question then.
Yeah.
Okay. But that brings up a good point, because I think our commission and our community should be proactive and look at our entire Forest Hills area. Our Forest Hills area, it has changed, and it is now being sought after by people coming in and building diverse-looking homes. We have a lot of that here, as you mentioned, from Travis Price down to Peasley to many colonial. We have many, many styles in Forest Hills, and I think that's what's making our area unique and why people want to live here. So this is a very hard decision, but I think our commission is going in the right direction by being more proactive in the future, and therefore not going and when a house comes up for sale, having to go through this process every time. Sure. I will make a statement with, I know you were trying to cut me off. I think I appreciate what you said, David, on the Owl's Nest. It's a very different project. It's a very different house. It's a very different siting than this particular house, which makes, again, Forest Hills unique. It also had other things going on with it where a school wanted to buy the property, and how that house came into that historic preservation mode was to thwart a school being put on that location, and that is a very, very different thing than what we're dealing with here. I just want to say it's a different application, it's a different timing, and it's a different site.
Okay, thank you. You have a comment?
Sure.
Or well, I guess so. No. So. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so you have any comments?
Yeah,
on that?
I have some comments.
She said we can table it.
Oh, we can table it?
Yeah.
Okay, so then
I still have a comment.
go for it.
Because I want to say
We all have
something.
comments.
Yeah, I'm a little frustrated that we're even hearing this tonight, because the timing of this is what really bugs me, and a lot of it is due to a lack of practice on our part, and we'll take fault for that. But I'm looking at this, and I know we're supposed to be examining the historical nature of this, and to me, I'm not sure where it lands now that Mr. and Mrs. Gordon put up the fence in the back, and I don't know if I'm protecting them or a Peasley architecture, and they don't seem to be master builders. But that said, there's two other real-world consequences. One is the financial implications of an owner, and I understand that may not be what we're supposed to be taking into account here, but that does come up. But there's also there's implications for the community and the historical nature of a house. that enhances that community, especially a view like this. And especially after last month when we had a separate historical preservation review in which the builder worked with the Historical Preservation Office in tandem, both on the designation and the renovation and extension that was going on, and addition that was created.
Yeah.
I don't know why that process couldn't be followed here, and I don't know why this application couldn't be pulled from the review board and be brought back up when and if this property was actually threatened.
Would you like an answer to that?
Not really, right now. We can talk later. You and I can directly.
It isn't fair to the purchaser to them to do that.
I would be shocked if the purchaser hasn't heard about what's been going on.
It's like changing the zoning on the site after someone buys it.
Sure. And you can go back to 1953, what was it? When 55, when his parents were the purchaser. And there's no reason to change the zoning on them right now either. So I don't know why we would prioritize that second purchaser instead of that.
Thanks. I mean, I agree with what you said, but I just am uncomfortable with the timing on this. And in all honesty, I didn't find it particularly persuasive, the application. I found the HPO's report as a book report on the architect, but being built by an architect doesn't make it, a famous architect doesn't automatically make it.
It is one criteria.
It's one criteria,
Yes,
but
yes.
we
So-
can't, I mean, I don't know, we're not,
Right.
to nominate every house he's built in DC, there's probably more than this.
10 or 12 in our.
But I'm just
We need
saying,
to look at.
I don't know. And then, secondly, I think Mr. Gordon's information, a lot of the application was about the beautiful wall that you said your parents built, which has nothing to do with the house.
Right.
So, because I read the application, I'm like, oh, the wall sounds very beautiful. It's flowing, whatever. But your parents built that, so I don't know. But I agree. So, thanks. Do you have any final comments?
No, if it's been tabled, then we will consider it again if the house is threatened and it gets issued.
I think it makes sense to consider as a larger review
Yes.
and a proactive nature of our entire community and prevent these sort of heated discussions.
And I hope that we can work with the Alliance to decide what houses should go as
Right.
part of that survey. This is probably
Who would
gonna
like to be on
list.
that committee?
Sign up now.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, applicants.
you all.
Mr. Gordon, if he's still here. Thanks. All right, so we have four more items, but I hope these will be very quick. So last meeting, we had a Forest Hills Connection asked for $850 for a new website. So I'm going to make a motion to approve that, and we'll go through all our formal legal review if it is approved. So I guess I'll make a motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second. So
Any discussion?
I guess let's discuss it so we can do our legal
Yes,
review
please.
of the application as far as I understand it. So are we all at a public, let's vote, are we all at a public meeting?
We are.
Yes.
All in favor, this is a public meeting?
Yes.
All right. So next, we only approve grants to organizations that are public in nature and benefit persons who reside or work within the commission area. I am of the view, I will make a motion that this grant is clearly public in nature and benefits all the residents of ANC 3F as well as other parts of the district. Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Was the grant submitted in writing to our commission? I'll make a motion that it was submitted to us in writing and voted in writing.
And right.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Malachi, will you confirm to us that this grant will be in our quarterly reports?
Yes.
Thank you. And is there someone from Forest Hills? Okay. Will you confirm to us you'll give us a receipt?
Do you want me to come up and say it?
You can just say yes.
We'll get you a receipt.
All right. It seems to me that all the legal requirements required by law are met here, and that this will benefit a public purpose, and I think a great purpose. So all in favor of the motion to approve this grant, raise your hand.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Congratulations. Please provide a receipt.
Tonight.
Tomorrow.
Good, because we need it for some announcements.
All right. So next, I'll turn it over to Andrea. Resolution to support the renewal of Sandra
Matavu Fry.
Matavu Fry, the People's Council.
So the appointment of Sandra Matavu Fry, it's a mayoral appointment, ended last month sometime. She's serving in an interim capacity and continuing in an interim capacity, but she's not been reappointed, and there's some kind of time frame beyond which they can't reappoint her anymore, and I think it's the end of the calendar year. She's been fighting for the interests of DC ratepayers, during her tenure, during the fight for the power line undergrounding, during the gas light replacement project, during the whole Exelon-Pepco merger. There have been a couple of times where she's fought and gotten reductions in proposed increases in rates. She's been a voice for the people in the district, for the ratepayers in the district for throughout her tenure. And so I can read the wording of the resolution, but based on that, I'm recommending that we ask the mayor's office to reappoint Sandra Matavu Fry as the People's Council.
All right, is there a second for that?
Second.
All right. Any discussion from commissioners? Anyone in the audience have any opinion on our current People's Council? Okay, let's vote on that. All in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 6-0-0. Lastly, I will turn it over to Malachi for a financial update and then a website update.
Okay. Just briefly, I circulated to everyone the monthly budget performance. We only spent about $500 over the past month, so you can see in the actual column where we are in the various budget categories that we track. Our bank balance as of today is $126,403 even. Okay. And then to the website update. So we've been back and forth with the discussion of the various designs. I'm not going to propose that we vote tonight on the design. I circulated to the commissioners the final two designs with the 5 pages for each design. Ask you each to look at those, and then we'll have a conversation offline about the final design. What I am going to do tonight is to make a motion to authorize the technology committee to spend up to $3,000 on website development. What we'll do is we'll take the final design, once we've refined it and finalized it with the designer, take that to someone who can actually code it and prepare the pages according to those designs. According to our estimates, that would be $3,000 or less.
So there's a second.
No, but I have a question. But
Okay, Commissioner, questions?
Since we have, should we talk about the two designs later? But that kind of goes along with, is there a way in which if everyone likes both designs, where somehow that can be furthered with the designers? Or is it better to, I want to ask the question, or is it better to go ahead and go with the one designer? And I think there's strong opinions from different people about each website. So
I can handle that. The nature of the design service we used, it's actually a contest. And so with that contest, it has to have a winner. So we,
I see. Okay.
we
I
need to
didn't
pick
know
the
that.
design
Okay.
of the two we like the most, and then we could point to them to some
okay.
characteristics of the
That's-
other ones.
You answered my question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We can actually award a second place if we want to spend more money. We can award the second place and then have the legal rights, the copyright to the second design as well if we wanted to do that. But I don't know what we would do with two designs
Sorry,
for the website.
well, didn't we have kind of a clear context about one of them?
We did, but then,
Yes.
we talked afterwards. We wanted to give it one final discussion. And,
Okay.
and so-
I see. Because from your email, I thought we had more of a consensus, and sadly you weren't there on Saturday.
Yeah. Right.
I understand. But I thought as a group, we had a consensus of what we felt about the
And that's
ones.
fine. What confused me is based on the emails that you guys sent me before that meeting, there was a consensus on a different one. So the consensus shifted. So-
Yes, and that's true, because we had a verbal discussion and we looked at every website with notes.
Mhm.
So
So
that
that's
is-
why I
that
s-
is a different, I personally feel like we did due diligence at our offsite meeting, and
What you didn't have at the offsite meeting was all 5 pages for each design.
you're correct.
So that's what I
So
said.
I think some of it,
Okay.
had a little time to look at them,
Yeah.
but not a lot of time.
Okay, good, we'll have a look.
So that's good.
Okay, understood. Thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions? Audience?
I just want to say, don't sweat what it looks like too much. What's important is that it's easy to update and that it adds to the transparency of the ANC. You know, that it's, you can easily get the minutes up there, you can easily get the resolutions up there. That's what's important.
One of the things we're actually doing is moving to WordPress, which I know Forest Hills Connection is on, and that'll allow us to update it much more regular than our current site.
And it's hard, and I really admire what you guys are doing, and that don't worry too much about the look of it.
Okay.
Well, and to Tracy's point, we had discussed on Saturday maybe paying for Rachel to attend a social media or website update type class. So I guess I would just ask that we, I don't know, is the $3,000 going to be completely spent with the web designer?
You feel that's a good idea, Tracy?
Yeah,
WordPress.
absolutely. And the designer can teach Rachel how to use it. I
Yeah.
can spend 30 minutes with Rachel. I don't even volunteer to spend time with her to teach her the WordPress.
Oh, that's great.
I can help her out with WordPress as well, and if we want to give her extensive training beyond that, I think we can affordably get it. But I would recommend keeping the development budget where it is, and we should be able to. I expect we can have savings for it, but I'd like to reserve it just in case we need it for the full build of the site.
Well, so then maybe what I'm asking is that as we negotiate the contract with
Yeah.
the webmaster, or whatever they're called,
Mhm.
that training Rachel and maybe one of us, one of you two, is part of that package.
Sure. I use WordPress a lot in my daily life, so I'm pretty, I understand it. We can definitely include that in parts of a bid. I will say that, there's different firms, the firms that will include training with it, we should evaluate it as a whole part of the package and see if that can be included in the package, or if it makes more sense to make it sort of 2 separate bids, and in which case we could save money on the development end that we can allot toward Rachel's training.
Okay.
But we can take a holistic view, I guess, of it.
So we got a vote. All in favor?
This is motion for 3,000.
Yeah.
3,000.
Yeah.
Aye.
It was second. right?
Second, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote in favor.
I do.
There you go.
We're proud of you.
So, unless there's anything else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Let's adjourn.
All right.
All right, thank you. See everyone on August 6th.
Six.